This afternoon, it's my pleasure to introduce Lisa Sanditz, an artist who makes paintings, works on paper, and ceramics. In her two-dimensional work, intense colors and dynamic compositions seem to radiate energy. For me, her work is distinguished by a finely balanced visual intensity. She takes my visual cortex to a kind of threshold of experience and hold it there. And I've learned that when it's held there, I can trust those artists' hands to keep it safe, but vibrating, which I really love. Hard to make paintings that good, I think. Lisa has had solo exhibitions at Philip Martin Gallery in LA, Alexander Gallery in New York, Huxley Parlor Gallery in London, UK, Jonathan Ferrara Gallery in New Orleans, Isolation Room in St. Louis, Missouri, CRG Gallery in New York, Rodolphe Janssen Gallery in Brussels, Belgium, and the Kemper Museum of Contemporary Art in Kansas City, Missouri. Her work has been included in group shows at Leo Koenig Gallery in Andes, New York, a lot of shows upstate, which is really cool. The Francis Lehman Loeb Gallery at Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, Wallach Gallery at Columbia University here in New York, Thomas Cole National Historic Site in Catskill, RGR Gallery in Mexico City, Bard College in Annandale on Hudson, New York, where, as you'll find out in a minute, she teaches. Modern Art Gallery in London, 1053 Gallery in Fleischmann's, New York, Verse Gallery in Red Hook, Eric Firestone Gallery downtown New York, Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art in Bentonville, Arkansas, Aquavella Gallery in New York, and also Palm Beach, Sheldon Museum of Art in Lincoln, Nebraska, Assia Geisberg Gallery in New York, and Assia, as many of you know, is an alum of this program. Olana Historic Site in Catskill, Cummer Museum of Art in Jacksonville, Florida, Freight and Volume Gallery here in New York, Bushel Collective in Delhi, not Delhi, Delhi, New York, CES Gallery in Los Angeles, Acme Gallery also in LA, the Nerman Museum at in Kansas City, Kansas, Transmitter Gallery, which is an awesome gallery in Bushwick. I don't know if it still exists.
It does.
Oh, great. Cool. Torrance Art Museum in Torrance, California, VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, Virginia, the Weatherspoon Art Museum in Greensboro, North Carolina, Fort Collins Museum of Art in Fort Collins, Colorado, Dayton Art Institute, Lace Gallery, that's Los Angeles Contemporary Exhibitions, Priska Druska Gallery, which was around for a long time in New York City, Academy of Arts and Letters in New York, Julie Saul Gallery in New York, the Center for Curatorial Studies at Bard, Rhode Island School of Design in Providence, the American Academy in Rome, the Neuberger Gallery at SUNY Purchase, Gallery Fernando Zubiaga in Caracas, Venezuela, the IPC International Print Center of New York, Participant Inc., Orange County Museum of Art in Newport Beach, and Brick's Rotunda Gallery in Brooklyn. The work has been reviewed and discussed quite a bit, including the New York Times, the New Yorker, Art Forum, Art News, Time Out New York, the Brooklyn Rail, Bomb Magazine, Hyperallergic Art Pulse, New American Paintings, Modern Painters, The Week, Freeze, ArtNet News, and Art Problems. Kind of a who's who of art publications. She's done a couple residencies, notably the Vermont Studio Center in Johnson, Vermont, and Pouch Cove Artist Residency in Newfoundland, Canada. Her work has been supported by grants and awards from Anonymous Was a Woman, John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation, and Reed Foundation. Her next solo show, forgot to mention, her next solo show will be here in New York City at Alexander Gallery on the Upper East Side in September 2026. So keep your eye out for that. She teaches at Bard, where she's an artist in residence and has been for over a decade, about a decade. And she received an MFA from Pratt Institute in Brooklyn and a BA from Macalester College in St. Paul, Minnesota. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Lisa Sanditz.
I agree first, you guys all know that. Thank you, that was such a warm introduction.
I'm gonna sort of stand. Am I going to be out of the screen if I move? I'm good. This is live streaming, which is. Thank you, that was great. And I really appreciate everybody being here today. I recognize it's a class, although also some of you are not in the class, but you know, needless to say, it's a complicated time. So I'm always extra appreciative of the opportunity to gather together and talk, and especially talk about painting. Okay, so I've broken this down into these categories. Mostly I'll talk about painting, and then the last categories less so. Actually, there's like nothing in here from 2026 except this very moment that we're sharing. I was painting yesterday and it was feeling like a disaster. Has anyone ever felt that way? Is there anyone here who's never felt that way painting? You should try it. Okay, so paintings are organized by the last few solo shows I've had over the last 7 years, I guess, and then a few paintings before that. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me in the back row? Okay, thanks. So I'll start with this painting entitled Big Cat. Just sort of as an overarching, I guess, sort of statement about how I've thought about my paintings over the last 25 years, is the intersection of culture and ecology in the landscape, and how the many ways that the formal qualities of paintings can address that. And sometimes that can be personal, and sometimes it can be political, and sometimes it's just appreciative. And so as we go through these paintings, you'll see how I'm playing around with different formal qualities, color, line, shape, form, scale, art histories, to address places, thoughts, feelings. But I wanted to start here because it's a big cat painting. And so if you're a cat lover, this might all be downhill from here. If you're a dog lover, it's all uphill from here. There's one other cat, just in case you're like bored and you need something to think about moving forward. So this is, as you see, 2025, so recent painting. In this last show that I had in, it was in London in the spring. I really organized a lot around scale and scale of people relative to other people within their emotional proximity, and the landscape itself. So this is a painting of my son feeding our cat. So here's sort of like the outsized feeling that we share for our pets in our somewhat dreamy backyard here. I do live in the Hudson Valley, so I'm immersed in a lot of landscape and nature. This is a painting of my son having a super big gulp in the landscape. So again, so the idea of sort of scale as like feelings, you know, for him, feelings, even like teaching, you know, working with younger people, thinking about like the scale of the future ahead of, you know, you all and the folks younger than you, the responsibility that I have towards my child, and you know, all of sort of the younger people, as well as the sort of impression of humans on the landscape itself. As I keep talking, I've kind of have learned that I think it's easier in some ways, or more available through language, to talk about sort of narrative aspects of painting, because stories are bound to language, and painting it in lots of ways is a very interior process. But I will, you know, allude to that too. But so sometimes the color choices are just happen within the studio magic or conditions, as many of you are familiar with. I did want it to sort of be a cool kind of winter landscape, and then the sort of warmth of like spring sort of showing up through parts of the landscape itself. And then even though he's immersed in this space, that he's truly just invested mostly in his super big gulp. Here's a painting of sort of him and me. he's not super, probably not, isn't super excited about paintings of him, but I also kind of say that they are him, but they're also sort of like a surrogate, right, of like mother and child. He's around this time he's like 11, so also the precipice between being a child and exploring, going off into the world. This is somewhat of a self-portrait. So here scale being like outsized with the landscape itself. Also, I think in this painting too, I was really wanting to make sort of big blocks of color. That was sort of more the driving force. So how to like, when you know, painting landscape a lot, how to insert a different palette in there. So if the scale is exaggerated within the landscape itself, providing sort of an opportunity to play with the color in that too. You know, yeah, I'll leave it at that. You can make your own assumptions. So another thing about an artist talk is I'm giving you these sort of interior stories, but if you're just looking at these paintings on a wall, you're going to make your own you know, conclusions. Well, you are anyway, but I'm giving you a little more of my thoughts about it too. This painting is called Pinus erectus, which is the Latin name for pine trees, just to say. Can you see the face? Okay, sometimes I wonder if it just, it's fairly enigmatic, but you can see it. So sunrise, obviously a play on words there, as is the show exhibition, Big Boy, which sort of, you know, implies a youthfulness, but also an aspirational, right? The term big boy. And in this painting too, I think, so this painting, just to say, so some of the paintings I plan, like the one where he's in the landscape with the super pickle, it like lived in my mind as a vision. I'm sure some of you know that, and like it was gonna be that. This was a painting that was one painting, and then it was upside down, then it was sanded, then it was something else. And then I had the moon. I wanted in the group of paintings something that was like a very concrete sort of grounding shape. So it had the moon and it was sort of the mountains, and then it just needed something more. And then I thought about the face rising out of the water. I did this before the larger figure of myself. And also we watch a lot of Godzilla kaiju movies. So there's a lot of the creature coming out of the rising up out of the water in our realities. Here's a image of a couple just gallery shots of the exhibition. Not all of the work, but to sort of show you it together. Some of the other paintings you can see. Can't decide if I want to sit or stand. I'm doing both. I'm splitting it up. Okay, hyper accumulators. This is a show I had the year before that at Philip Martin Gallery in Los Angeles, California. So before this show, well, actually, it's not totally true. I think earlier in a lot of work I'm not actually even showing, I used to work in sort of more thematically concise organizing around a theme in the paintings. And then, you know, in the last few years, I mean, 10 years really, but a few years, everything feels so chaotic that there seems to be so few divisions between boundaries, personally, politically, and so the shows have become more open between figure and landscape. So the name of the show is Hyperaccumulators, and it's the title of this painting also. And some of you may know, if we have any botanists in here, I guess, that hyperaccumulators are types of plants that can withstand toxicity much higher than other plants around it, like 100 to 1,000 times higher. So the hyperaccumulators in our lives are invasive species or plants that are brought somewhere else, because they're very good they have very good survival skills, right? So, but there is a type of hyperaccumulating plants. They tend to be in like South America and the sort of Pacific, New Caledonia specifically, that can withstand, again, like 100 to 100 times the amount of heavy metals of other plants like living in its proximity, to the point where if it's cut, the sap that comes out of it is like this blue, almost like has almost the chemistry of latex paint. Has anyone come across this? It's kind of like a weird little niche thing, but I just, happened upon it at some point. So this is like a specific kind of set of circumstances where and rare in a lot of ways, but the composition of the landscape is actually a bleeding paint, which was like, as soon as I read that and saw this, I was just like, whoa. And so I made this painting. It's hard to see, so it's kind of dark, but the painting itself also, there's like, it's like mostly acrylic. And then I did use some oil, and especially like there are these huge globs of oil, like blue paint that's kind of oozing out of the tree in the painting. And I paint a lot of locations that I'm familiar with or have visited. This was not one. I did not have the opportunity to go to New Guinea to do research, but if anyone wants to give me a grant to do that, send them my way. Be willing. So that was one of the paintings for the show. And then the show, felt like the hyperaccumulation of everything, of colors, marks, painting, feelings, thoughts, loss, frustration. And so the show kind of goes across different genres in terms of figure, landscape, etc. I guess this is a figurative painting of a bear. So this was, we've all read things about bears coming into contact with human food, right? So this isn't exactly like a specific bear story necessarily, although when I painted this, it was right around the time that Cocaine Bear came out. Did anyone see that?
Yeah.
Wasn't it so good bad? If you haven't seen it, you could just watch like the 5-minute trailer. It like pretty much covers it. Unless you like bad gore, it's good for that. So I kind of had this idea of like, this is like sort of a bear's eye perspective of your whole life you've eaten berries and salmon, and then you come across a packet of Skittles in the wood, and you're just like, so that's what Skittle Bear is. Because as if you don't know what Skittles are, those are Skittles. But also there how the formal qualities like drove the painting too. Like, how do I make a painting of a bear in the woods, but it's like super vibrant? And this painting is all like synthetic paint. It's all transparent, so it's like really close. Mountains, 1973 to 2023. I painted this on the day of my 50th birthday. So this is another painting in that show. So this is has anyone been to the super blooms and the desert outside of Los Angeles? Feels so like deeply exotic right now, as we're all like, it's 10 degrees and we're all in 2 feet of snow. Well, it's definitely become quite a destination, to the point where and especially as a selfie destination, they've kind of had to shut it down, because so it's this hillside where the California poppies and the purple flowers, whose name I'm forgetting, bloom at the same time, and it's like a full-on like fluorescent orange mountain and purple. This is not a photograph, and it's probably somewhat exaggerated, but and it's become more and more of a destination, and it can't even like kind of absorb the amount of people there. And it isn't like a national park or anything, so there aren't trails. So people are kind of trampling, around. They're excited to be there. That's cool. Just watch where you're stepping, I guess. So I went to this site also because I heard it was beautiful. It was a little before it had become sort of overused to the point where they've had to monitor how many folks go there. And so here's the painting I did addressing this. So, I am happy with this painting, but in terms of, in my mind, I was like, I want to make a painting that like captures that saturated, glowing orange and purple. And, it has that in the painting, but it doesn't have it to that degree where you're like engulfed in the orange, right? So, maybe I can do it again. Address the same painting again, and I did another version of this painting also I liked, but it didn't quite hit that note. So sometimes I come back to paintings to try to solve some of those, to have it hit it where I want it to hit. Also with the paintings, and you'll see in the last 5 years, sometimes the figures, the more recent paintings, the figure scale has been exaggerated. And often I have the figures themselves inverted, and that was something that, especially during the time of the pandemic, when the world is upside down and upside down world, it truly felt like that. So I started doing painting landscapes where the landscape is always reliably, adhering to the laws of gravity, but the people themselves are often inverted, so that you'll see that kind of popping up. And I think often about historic precedents or paintings, how these stories may have been told over time, or we all are like this idea of selfies and like, well, people have been making it as soon as humans had an ability to make an image, they made selfies, right? This is like some of the first record of human presence in artistry. And that's like, oh, look, I have a hand and I got whatever the material is, charcoal or whatnot, to record my presence here. And we don't know what these, there's a lot of speculation, but we don't know what these signify. But we do know that that's a person recognizing their end location. See? Look at that, come on. Okay, a couple other paintings from this body of work. Grandma Cheeseburger Nose. So hyper accumulating, also thinking of things that are really fantastic at growing. Cancer is a great hyper accumulator in the body. My grandmother was very classy. You'll see another painting of her. And she had, and ultimately, well, actually she didn't pass away from cancer, but she had cancer a few times in her life. And I don't think I got to really talk about this painting, but she was fond of a Big Mac. She also had a artificial nose, and which she was very late in her life because of having cancer on her face. So so I have her. It's hard to see, but the nose is next to her on her counter, right there, and while she's being in her mind super classy, eating a cheeseburger with her nose next to her on her table. So, trying to also find kind of contradictions and joy and humor and like pushing through kind of difficult things. I don't know that she would like this, but come on, she looks so cool. She would like it. One thing is you paint the deceased. I mean, at least how I feel. They don't really know. Some of you may think that they know in your own mindset how you're representing them, but so this is another painting, grieving guacamole at a memorial service for another grandmother of mine in our living room. I think we can go back to this if you want more information. It's like a little family drama. 5:01 p.m. 5:01 in our house, especially during the pandemic. 5 o'clock, the child can have screen time and I can have a glass of wine. Everyone's like on their, retreating to their devices and their interior lives and then connecting outside too. Sort of the chaos of the living room. And I've been painting for a while now. So sometimes specific paintings, I'll like think of a specific other painting or painter. So once I started painting some more familial interiors, thinking about people like Bouillard. No, that's not Bouillard.
Yeah.
they have a much cleaner floor. That's because, well, whatever. Maybe I was gonna say because it's a man who painted it, it's not cleaning the floor, I don't know. Nicole Eisenman, interior dinner scene. Carrie James Marshall's interiors. I grew up in St. Louis and he was like had a big presence there being in Chicago. I was lucky enough to, go to the Free Public Museum a lot in St. Louis and see his work. Someone's nodding, you're nodding your head. I mean, he's like giant, like legendary hero now, but like little, when I was as a teenager, I was like, these are amazing. It's a little humbling to go back and forth between your work and these people, so just bear with me. But especially as students and makers, I want you to like know that, right, this is like, we're always like kind of going back and forth between our own work and the precedent before us, what's around us. This is a painting called Catterskill Falls Selfies, and I painted this at Catterskill Falls after a visit there where there were also a lot of people on selfies or making selfies or like on their phones and people relaxing. But there was a woman next to me ordering a humidifier. I was like, we are next to one of the biggest waterfalls in New York. It is a humidifier. You do not need to go get one from Amazon right now. Interior thought. And some of you know, maybe, I know my friend Kate here, who was a curator at the Cole site, knows that it's also a famous Thomas Cole painting, Catterskill Falls. So also, when I had gone hiking there, I knew that, I knew about this painting, and I went there with another mom and kids. I didn't go intending to make a painting, but afterwards I just, thought about it and really did want to make a painting of it.
Lisa, could you just give a little bit of background on Cole and
Yeah.
If you don't mind, not.
Yeah, I'm going to give it's coming. I'll give a little bit more background, and then if you want more after that, we'll ask Kate, who's the expert. I have a couple more of his paintings coming up. So also living in the Hudson Valley now, and artists like Thomas Cole, there's lots to be said about it, but at times had a romantic idea of the landscape, a nationalistic idea. There's also this sort of like godliness, there's a colonialist aspect, there's an ecological layer. There's also erasure of indigenous people by omission of them not being on these sites. So this is a painting, 1826, this is from 1888, but this is also how the Hudson Valley, this is a depiction of the Hudson Valley at that, similar time, 50 years later, but also to sort of show in contrast a sort of more romantic view and a more industrial view of a place. Thinking about other artists that think about the landscape and work in like complicating the narrative or the reference points. Also, that a painting it's a European idea that everything happens within a rectangle. So how do you layer different times, feelings, emotions, and symbols within that rectangle? So this is a walking stick painting, and there are a number of paintings of Niagara Falls, also from the Hudson reversible painters, like 200, 150 years earlier. So she's also thinking about that tradition. Somebody like David Hockney, who's painting more sort of out in the West, the landscapes at this point, but how to kind of work with color to draw you in, manipulate color, using color as one of the characters, how to tell a story that has like a lot of entry points in it, and the color can do that, and other aspects of painting too. So here's I have a few. I don't have all of the Course of Empire paintings in here, but one of Thomas Cole's more famous paintings are the cycle of 5 paintings together. So this is the second one, the Arcadian State. So the first one is the Savage State, which is what it was called at the time, and the second one is the Arcadian State. So it's like this idea that's sort of this like somewhat harmonious stasis between colonialism and nature, and that the people are sort of responsibly working the land, which, has a lot of value to it, but it's also negating other people that stewarded the land well before, and, inserting this sort of temple structure. Kate, is it a temple? What is the structure?
Oh, it's a ruin.
A ruin, yes. Okay, so inserting like an ancient ruin in here, again, like reinforcing this sort of Greco-Roman idea. The next painting in the cycle is the consumption of empire. So the opulence, the gratuitous, the spoils, if the thing, commerce, gluttony goes too far, this is sort of the next phase, right? It's a pretty big jump. Woo, woo, right? I mean, just, just look through things, put a couple images together. And, that's what he's going for, this sort of grotesque opulence, right? Disrespectful of any other history or ecology that may be in its presence. Here it is in the exterior. And this is Thomas Cole's next painting in the cycle. So this is what, cautionary tales, right? This is what's happens after the empire explodes and breaks, and gluttony wins. That's a beautiful painting. Speaking of beautiful paintings, Isabel. I think especially working with the landscape, sometimes they're like personal places I paint, but then sometimes things, specific stories happen in the news cycle or something like this. And this is especially around the time that the Mar-a-Lago was being raided for the files that he had illegally taken. It was just like constantly in the news, was like Mar-a-Lago, Mar-a-Lago. So I was like, okay, gotta reckon with this. I wanted to make it gross. I wanted to make it orange. And just like make it, more masculine than adding the truck nuts to make it more masculine. Do we need to discuss what truck nuts are, since y'all are not country folk? Do you want to live in the mystery and just not? I gave this talk to the faculty at the school, and the dean was in the room, and I was like explaining truck nuts, and I was like, oh god.
Already minds want to know.
Okay, so if your big truck isn't masculine enough, you can add truck nuts on the back of them so that it's like making your truck even more masculine. That's what they are. So you'll now they have the, they're different color, they're usually like chrome. This is a smaller one, so it's for kids' toys, so that your child can be more masculine with their toys. Whatever. They come with American flags on them. Okay, moving on. Okay, after I painted this painting, I was like, well, I can't, I gotta have like a cleanse. So I did this painting, double rainbow, what does it mean? So both of these are 9 by 12 inches, they're like the size of a computer screen. So thinking about the scale as to which you interact with these images versus like being outside. Do you guys remember this early internet meme? Yes, okay. Did you know that that's my reference when I said it, the title?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What does it mean? If you don't, then you all can look it up later. Okay. Another paint show, 2022. Is that enough Thomas Cole? Mark, enough context for Thomas Cole?
Yeah.
Okay, we can get a little more. Also because when we're having Q&A, so I'm like kind of putting this stuff out there, y'all can double back on it. I'm just gonna show a couple paintings from this show, Pink Tiger. This was based on a story, maybe some of you guys came across this in Houston about 5-7 years ago, where a juvenile Bengal tiger got loose in a suburban neighborhood in Houston. Anyone remember this? So, and it was just kind of fantastic, amazing, watching this Bengal tiger just walking around like house to house and just laid on the lawn like it was a little house pet. Here's my second cat painting. And I was thinking, it's always like how it doesn't belong here, and and just looking at the images of this sort of suburban, built up neighborhood in Houston, thinking like, well, what this isn't this suburban neighborhood with all these lawns in this like a dry Texas is also not native to this space. So kind of playing with the colors there, to kind of suggest that everyone is there, is an invasive species of sorts. They tranquilized the tiger, and we got it to a tiger rescue place. Mastectomy Murmah, there's my grandma again. In her apartment. Mara fucking Lago. This is the first one I made. Mount Vesuvius. You may know the people of Pompeii were like, wow, there's a volcano over there. There's a little puff of smoke. Not gonna hurt us. So sort of this idea, again, like cautionary tale. So this was as you see, body work I did in 2020. So this was the first time working with this gallery in London. They're really great, very supportive, very nice folks. And they asked me to do a show in 2019, and then in the midst, like right before COVID, and then I was like, there's no way this is gonna happen. And somehow we pulled this off, and I made these paintings in the midst of all of that chaos, teaching online, teaching a kid online, all of the stress around that, and like sending the paintings abroad. You all know that was just such a seminal time. And especially then, I just was, we were all stuck in our own like little fiefdoms, right? So we spent a lot of time in our house, a lot of time in our backyard. And this was like this big kind of willow tree that's kind of falling apart somewhat in our backyard. Actually, this painting is called Cat Shit in Mud Season. There's a little tiny, oh, there's the third cat. I forgot. There's a little cat back there, with a little bit of poop. Sorry, you can't see it. It's too small. But the painting was like, like look at it. I'm like, this is so crazy. And it was just like being stuck in my garage painting in like a circle, and all I had is like mud. It's like muddy outside. You can't leave your property, and I feel like has, not by design, it just has this like just circular loop of like pushing through this thing. This is at the time where I started making paintings with the figures inverted, upside down walks. I had sort of a series of these. The one on the left, the yellow one, my friend Kate, who's here, is in it. If she had her sunglasses on, you'd be able to recognize her. Painting of really dead flowers. Needless to say, there was so much loss at that time, so just sitting with things that were decaying. I don't know if it was cathartic, it just was. So I made these. These are oil. I tend to mostly work in acrylic. We can get into that later. Or now. Ghost box. I was driving home one night. Now I'm like, where was I coming from? Because no one went anywhere, but maybe it was the summer right before the pandemic or something. And there was a beautiful red fox dead on the side of the road. But then and it was illuminated, the car before it, the brake lights illuminated it. And it was just beautiful. I wanted to give it another chance. The painting's called Grandma's Got a Gun. I painted this also in the pandemic, so when I was in high school, we did lots of illicit things. And we spent a lot of time at my friend's house there were no parents there, but grandma was there, and there was always this story that grandma had a gun. So if anything got out of hand, people would just start yelling, "Grandma's got a gun!" So certainly never went off. I'm not sure I saw it or not, but there definitely was like not an incident, because obviously like the story could go to a much darker place really quickly. But this idea, feeling like with Trump as president, like there are no, like, where are the adults in charge? It's only these sort of like violent, terrible management systems. So I made this painting at that time, and the people are all like smushing and smushing into the couch.
And this is in St. Louis?
In St. Louis, yes. I've been meaning to reconnect with that friend and ask about that story, because it was in like 8th, 9th, 10th grade. Like, did grandma have the gun? What, but I've fallen out of touch a bit. So here's that work installed as a group. Obviously other paintings too. I will touch on the oil acrylic conundrum in a second here. Okay, so I have 3 pieces from 8 years, just to add a little bit more context. Also oil. So I have done, like I said, I have done a lot of traveling and going to sites specifically to study, or like to visit the site and think about the site and look at the site and smell it and walk around and talk to people, if I have something in mind, or maybe I just travel somewhere and see what I encounter. This is outside of a Frito-Lay factory in Arizona. So, and I don't exactly remember the time of this, from 2013 or something, oil on canvas. And they had solar panels there, which like now is sort of more familiar, but it was sort of one of the first, an early large corporation to use solar as their energy source. Which seems like an obvious contradiction, right? Like you make like the worst food possible, but you're like a progressive energy source to make that bad food. And then also using the sort of color of the Cheetos and Doritos as like the formal framework for the painting. I don't know. I think a lot of people are like, what are they? Because they don't look like solar panel. They kind of look like satellite dishes, but I did not make that. But just thought that's Cheetos. Big Cheetah. So the Frito-Lay, I did like a whole sort of series around sort of like food and farming sources. So that's just like one painting from that. What was this? This was I'm trying to remember what the whole like group of these paintings was. Actually, I can't even remember. But I remember what this painting is that I'm going to share with you. Does anyone know what this is or where? No. Okay, so doesn't it pretty absurd? So this is in Los Angeles, one of the largest aquifers. They were trying to, obviously they need water out in the West. It's not as dire as it was whenever this was, 10 years ago or something, 15 years ago. But they need to maintain as much water as they can. And there was like apparently a carcinogenic, help me out here, people. Carcinogenic. You need to pack the cigarettes. Bacteria growing in the water, apparently that sunlight stimulated. So the idea was to sort of maintain the water, that it could aerate, but rain could still come down, and it was to fill these 2 massive reservoirs with something like millions or billions of black plastic balls. And I had read about that, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. And it's bad when you're like a painting teacher with an MFA and you're like, this is a terrible idea, not going to work. So I went out and I saw it, and I made a painting of it called the Silver Lake Reservoir. That's the name of the reservoir. There's 2 Silver Lake reservoirs. I made many variations of this painting. I'm happy enough with this one. Again, I showed this painting in LA at the time the reservoir was filled, and so lots of people immediately knew what it was. And, but I also understand out of context, probably nobody knows what it is. But so when the specifics aren't available of a story or a place, you know, I hoped that it feels like there's like a pressure, like a weird foreign object pressing into the space. And the sort of landscape above it is like the sort of landscape right around the reservoir itself. So sure enough, it didn't work, and to the tune of millions more dollars, they removed all the black plastic balls, and I don't even know where they went to. But okay, a couple more paintings, and then some drawings, and then a little bit more. We're getting there. We're on the barge to the final journey of this lecture. So in around 2007, actually maybe 2005. So again, living in the Hudson Valley with this history of the Hudson River School painting there, moving there from the Midwest to the West Coast to the East, making sense of it all. Kayaking on the river. There are tons of barges still, and a lot of the way that the Hudson River is most utilized at this point is to move trash up and down the river. So it used to be much more used more for industrial purposes, because a lot of things were fabricated upstate and downstate. So I made a painting of this barge, and then I started wondering, like, well, if no, yes. Where if the industry is not here, if all that the river is utilized for is to move trash, where is the industry? Like, it's Hudson Valley is kind of post-industrial. So around that time, I read an article about manufacturing in China, and places that were named after the thing that was manufactured there. So for example, Shoe City, actually an article in the New York Times about Sock City, and it was like a third of the world's socks are made in this one, basically like neighborhood in China. I can't actually even remember right now where Sock City was outside of, sorry, it's been so long. But and reading Sock City, Shoe City, VHS, so that's already obsolete, right? VHS Village, and it seemed like kind of absurd, but they were actually these places, obviously have Chinese names, but were named, it was kind of based on this American model of like Detroit Motor City, or places where we were upstate, there was Gloversville and Tannersville. So in 2007 and 8, I went to China. I did get a Guggenheim grant to do that, to visit different factory cities. And I made then paintings of these single item factory cities as this landscape relates to our landscape, because they're producing things there that we utilize. So again, this was like 4 years of work. I'm just showing you 2 paintings here, but so Shoe City. So coming back, so doing site visits, meeting people, photographs, taking notes, bringing that back to the studio to make a painting. I visited a town where 85% of at that time Christmas ornaments are made, or Christmas ephemera. So especially for a country where they don't, some people celebrate Christmas, but it's not really at the heart of that culture. So that is almost all for export, right? Socks, everyone wears socks. So visiting a town where Christmas items were made, and seeing, all kinds of stuff, people making things, and big factories, really small factories. There was a lot of discarded, like the negative shape of Christmas balls, like outside of a factory or something like that. So kind of finding how the color and the refuse inserts itself into the landscape. Okay, I'm gonna show you a couple. Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna say about acrylic briefly, then I'll show a couple drawings and one project and some just images, and then we can take a break and then talk more. So I tend to mostly work in acrylic. I have worked in oil for stretches. I'm in an acrylic stretch right now, so we can all also talk about that as we want to in our conversation time. I find that I move quickly and I want to change my mind quickly, for better or worse. And so the oil I tend to work on one or a couple paintings at the same time, so the oil can be slow, which is one of its virtues, but can be hard for me to move through it the way that I want to. The cleanup is a lot, as you guys know, with oil, with painting with oil. And so I've actually learned, I have a pretty good sense of a lot of the materials and mediums also for acrylic paint, so I'm happy to talk about that. I work with Golden, love Guerra paint out of Brooklyn in terms of getting variety of the surfaces and flow and sheen and time and all that. So I made some drawings outside. So a few of these are drawings on site outside, and then some of them I come back into the studio. Sometimes the drawings are preparations for paintings. Often they're just kind of like their own thing. They're just like an in-between space. Sometimes they're easier than paintings, and then sometimes they're not. Then I'm mad at them because that's what their purpose is for. Like, I know a painting's gonna be, it's a gift if a painting is easy. I expect it to be hard. So if a drawing is hard, then I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What are we doing? So I did this on site at my friend's farm. On site and back in the studio. This one and the next one are, drew some of these flowers on site, but really put them together in the studio. And actually these are going to be an online show that launches tomorrow. So if you all want to check out more of them tomorrow, you have that to look forward to. And actually with these two, I've been focusing on North American native plants and more trying to stick with this region too. So just trying to like really emphasize the beauty in the plants that are indigenous to this place and the many properties that they offer us. Yes, and the show's online at Philip Martin Gallery. So you'll see that this ties into one project I'm going to share a little bit. Focusing on native, well, actually, these aren't necessarily native plants. I've learned a lot more about plants and native plants since I did this. This was done in like 2019 into 2020. It's a pollinator map. It was great to do this because it was like a fold out map, so anyone can like have this piece of art to take home with them. There was a printed poster, but otherwise it's like a free handout. I brought a few, but only a few because I don't have that many. I did it in collaboration with another artist, Emily Sarter, a friend of mine, and it was sponsored by the Thomas Cole site, Alana National Historic Site, and what was the third place? The River Cape, do you remember? Hudson
Basilica was involved.
Hudson Valley River Walk in Basilica to produce this. And also, I mean, paintings are useful in their ways, but this also feels more, specifically useful to sort of encourage, people to have more knowledge and about the local plants, about pollinators, know what they see, what they might want to plant, and also to make like a naturalist guide that's not just like your kind of traditional Audubon guide, something that like would catch different kinds of people to see it. Okay, this is the last section. I mean, I have other projects, but I just wanted to, give a few things. Okay. So lastly, just to say that I, as I think you can see, have folded concerns about ecology, other way the land is used. There's other issues of like class and race that I could get into more specifically about some of the places that I've painted, so some of the paintings are like more specifically leaning into that. Some of them are more personal. Some of it crosses over, but I also do a fair amount of political protest work too. So just want to share that with you. And then I have brought some postcards and posters, and then I even brought, again, after our little break, a template to make, if anyone wants to take a template to make a poster to take with them home. Again, I'm not like, I have no like agenda here except, justice. Humanity, no, plenty of agenda, but, for lots of reasons, lots of people don't feel comfortable or can't go out the streets. There's lots of ways to protest. You can pick up a phone call, you can give somebody a sandwich, you can, there's just many ways to do it, to protest. Doing nothing is not one of them. So making posters, and I think especially as artists, right, we have an opportunity to assert visuals into to political movements, and I think you all see that there is a lot of momentum right now amassing, and how some of the visuals play into that across the country, certainly in Minneapolis and places before that. So I made postcards that can be sent to friends or also to politicians, targeting specific legislation, or thank you note or whatnot. I brought some of these for y'all if you need any. And also just to show you, like, we can all do these things, right? You can write a postcard. I think an important part of this too, when I started doing activism, was like not layering it on top of your life, because we're all very busy and stretched, right? How do you like integrate it? So like invite your friends over to write postcards, invite your friends to your other friends' print studio and print a poster together. Like if you have kids, just have the kids help print. So how to like make it part, if it's safe, bring kids to protest. I bring my kid and Kate's kids, we've gone door to door, for politicians. And it's, I think, been meaningful for them too. So I'm in a group of a collective, graphics collective, called the Abortionistas, and we're a group of artists, medical care providers, and designers. So this is a poster we made. I don't have any of the hand printed ones for y'all, but I have some of the digitally printed ones. Put this in your window, you can walk around with it. You can do anything that's nice to it. Doing poster campaigns with students. This was about plastic legislation. We made the postcards. So this is what I brought. I brought butterfly cutouts if anyone wants to make. I just brought the shape and you can copy it. And I brought sticks. So you can sort of like, if you want to take the parts to take with you, and or just to see how, in some ways easy it is to make something. And I think especially having gone to enough rallies, if something that isn't a rectangle and something that has an image is like so great and two-sided. So even if you just keep those things in mind, like, cutting out a shape, whether it's just an image or messaging, really stands out. Here's our crew in Kingston, No Kings March. So I brought butterflies and sticks for y'all. We didn't really have time to, I was like, can the Q&A just be butterfly sessions? But we have them, you can cut them out and take them. We can talk about that. And also we're here to talk about painting, so that's a choice if you want to afterwards, grab some of the stuff I brought. Nail and Blake, their sign they made. That's it. Thank you.